Why, hello, good people. I have brought you here today because I have done the ridiculous and watched almost all of the Summer of Gaming. There were some bits that I decided I didn't care about. But other than that, I tried to watch everything, and I watched all of the main events. And I am here today to give you my thoughts on all the main events through a tier making. So, pardon me. So, let's start. Okay, let's start with something I didn't like. There it is. Ubisoft Forward. The Ubisoft Forward had some things going for it. It had gameplay. That was good. It had some reveals. A lot was in mobile, which was disappointing. But, companies got to do what they got to do. So those were good. A lot of gameplay shown, some reveals, new games, in that we actually finally got to see some Assassin's Creed Mirage. We finally got to see Star Wars. What was it? Rogue? No, that's not right. Whatever the new Star Wars game is. It's escaping me at the moment. So that was good. The bad was all the other bits. The talking was enraging in a terrible way. It was very cringy. It was very market speaky. It was just bad. It detracted from everything else. Because of this, I'm debating between a D and an F. And for right now, we're going to give it an F. Very sorry. All right. Now let's go. Here, let's pick another one. Jeff Keighley. Jeff Keighley, the man who brought it all together. He has Summer Game Fest, and then he technically is like the overarching entity through which Summer of Gaming goes through. Jeff had a lot of things going for him. He had some gameplay reveals. He had some game announcements. He had Nicolas Cage. That's a big bonus. That's definitely a big bonus. He had some developers come out on stage and talk about their games in non-cringy ways. What Jeff also had, unfortunately, was he had to pay the bills. So he had some advertisements that were kind of cheeky, kind of meh, but it's what he has to do to pay the bills. He didn't have as high quality of announcements as he has had in the past. He had some big ones with like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but he is probably never going to live up to that first Summer of Gaming that he did, where he had the Elden Ring reveals. So I'm going to give him a solid B. It definitely did the job. It did not stand out as amazing, but his negatives were understandable and not overwhelming. All right, let's just go with it. The PlayStation Showcase. This happened all the way back in May, but I include it in the broader Summer of Gaming umbrella. The PlayStation Showcase did a couple things really well. Number one, there was barely any talking. It was game, 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 game. There was a bit where we had to stop and pause because they had to do hardware announcements, which were kind of silly because it was like earbuds and stuff. I mean, some of it was interesting, but but that's just the game that Sony and Microsoft have to play because they need to keep people knowing that their hardware teams are doing stuff. I want to say that because of the excellent pacing, the lack of bad talking, and the fact that they had good stuff to show, including a large, 10-minute chunk of Spider-Man 2 gameplay, I'm going to give them an A. All right. Capcom Showcase. Capcom Showcase was interesting. There was a lot of talking, but it was by the developers, and it was much more sincere than something like Ubisoft's. It wasn't buzzwordy. It was like, listen, I've been working on this. I'm excited to share it with you. Let's talk about this a little bit. It was a good time. They showed a fair number of games, over a fair spread of types of games, from things from your Mega Man to your Dragon's Dogma. Nice widespread of games. There were some deep dives into specifics of things like Dragon's Dogma. There were announcements like the Ace Attorney Second Trilogy remaster. Overall, I'm not entirely sure they needed a full showcase for what they covered, and possibly could have incorporated a lot of this into other showcases. So, while I was happy with quite a bit of it, I'm going to give it a C. It was more of a deep dive than necessarily what we're going for here in Summer of Gaming as main event stuff. All right. Day of the Devs. Day of the Devs is interesting because they do a lot of talking, but in a way that doesn't enrage me. It's people excited about games talking about games. People excited about making games talking about games being made. It is very endearing. There is a lot going on with, how they, with all the games that they pick to show. So there's a wide spread of things. A lot of times there's really nifty games shown there, and that's what was there this year, was very nifty games. So I'm going to give it a solid B. Okay, we have Devolver Digital. Devolver Digital shows are something different if you've never seen one. They are big 20-minute long skits that have, productions really, that have a narrative fiction and their own universe, and they show you like 3 or 4 game trailers inside them. They are not your traditional show. They are, however, just absolutely madcap insane. They are bizarre. They are strange. They transgress reality in unexpected ways, and I adore them for that. Also, Devolver is really, they have a really good lineup of games. Even though they don't release that many, they don't release enough a year that really warrants a show. However, my theory is the point of these skits, these productions, isn't to show off the games. It's to show off the attitude of the company and keep Devolver on people's minds. In that, it does a very good job. I'm giving it our first rank S. All right, then we have the Future Games Show. The Future Games Show happens several times a year, and they do something very specific. Instead of having someone like a journalist or a game dev or an executive up on stage to introduce all these games, they pick 2 voice actors, 2 very established voice actors. They change it up all the time. And you know what? Voice actors are really good at reading scripts. The scripts also, they have jokes, but the voice actors make them not cringy. In general, they don't try too hard either. They just kind of rely on the charm of the presenters, and the presenters are always very charming. This year was Laura Bailey and Yuri Lowenthal, 2 impossibly charming people. They had a very wide array of games, and they don't linger too long between games. Even though I'm not a fan of a ton of talking between things, they do talk between each game shown. They're very quick about it. It's, intro, just 2 or 3 lines, and we keep moving. And I will also say that they generally have a wide array of games that they're showing. Very varied. Because of this, I'm going to give it an A rank. Okay. Future of Play Direct. This is an odd one. It is hosted by a VTuber. I am not one who generally supports the notion of VTubers. I think they're weird and strange, and they cause concerns for me about human psychology. However, this VTuber does a decent job. She just kind of introduces each thing. Every once in a while there's like some metafiction reference of I assume what the VTuber's metafiction is. It's pretty quick. It is also very good at it shows off a lot of games that you don't see elsewhere, and that's very valuable. You watch enough of these shows, and they all start to get the same. I give Future of Play a B. The Guerrilla Collective. Here I'm split. They show a lot of indie games. It's all about indie games. They show a lot of indie games, but there are a couple things here. One, the games start to blend together. They try to give a wide array, and they try to group them up logically, but it's a long show, and the edges start to blur, which is unfortunate arrangement. The other thing is there's quite a bit of talking that isn't bad, but it does slow things down a little bit. I do find myself actually skipping along sometimes and skipping the talking bits, which is never a good sign. Overall, I think it is a positive contribution to the summer of gaming, but there's too much talking, and the organization, for it being as long as it is, needs to tighten up a little bit. I'm going to give it a C. Okay, PC gaming show. I remember back when they did the very first PC gaming shows. It was a long time ago now. I think I was in college still. And PC gaming show was great. You had Day 9 introducing games, and occasionally, a sidekick introducing games. You had interviews on stage, and Day 9 was a pretty good interviewer. And there was some light banter. It was a good time. We have strayed far from that original vision. It was an unbearable array of unfunny skits. It was the easiest AI jokes. So, Devolver did AI jokes, but they did them in a weird, transgressive, things you never thought of and never would have guessed way. The PC Gamer show's AI jokes were lazy. They were the easiest possible jokes, and they weren't executed well. It was grating to watch. Furthermore, they didn't talk too much to people about anything. They just showed some trailers. And they did have good trailers. They had some good games there. But the overall viewing experience was miserable. I give it an F. Only have 3 more left. The Tribeca Games Spotlight. The Tribeca Games Spotlight is at the Tribeca Film Festival, and they, take some time to show off some games that are artsy and narrative in a way that appeals to those folks. They do deep dives, because they're pre-recorded segments. They deep dive into the making and the philosophy and what's happening with these games. It's more than just, here's a trailer. It's fairly unique in the way it approaches that. It's a little behind the scenes, and they're very choosy about the projects they show off. They don't show off that many projects. Because of its unique outlook, its unique approach, and the fact that it executes it very well, I'm going to give the Tribeca Games Spotlight a B, which is, to be clear, I consider a B to be a good grade. If they keep doing exactly what they're doing, that's all right. C, I think you need to fix up little things, become a little better. A, I think is doing above average job. S is something special that I couldn't even make suggestions about what I like or what I don't like. It's too perfect. F is a failure. All right. We have the Wholesome Direct. The Wholesome Direct is it's setting out with a challenge of trying to only show wholesome games, which turns out there's so many wholesome games. It was like, I think, an hour long show, but they featured, I believe, almost 80 games. That is a challenge. That is a problem. Because it makes it harder for games that, let's be honest, they're wholesome. A lot of them are very cute and cozy. They have very similar vibes. It makes it very hard for some of them to stand out against each other. You know, you can only see so many, life sims where you go and you start a farm in this village and keep them all straight, especially when we're only seeing most of these games for like 45 seconds at a time. The hosts do a fine job. They're a little, I don't know, the whole thing's a little just twee for me. But they're doing a fine job. I just wish that either it was a little longer, or we showed the games for a little longer, or we limited the games a little bit, even though I love seeing all the games. I'm going to give it a C because of that specific criticism. All right. Finally, we have the Xbox Showcase / Starfield Direct. Now, Xbox has been getting ragged on for a number of years. They're buying studios, they're not showing off new games, Xbox is dead, yada, 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 yada. Starfield also has been ragged on for years. It's going to be bad. There are leaks that are like, oh, it's going to be terrible. Just so on and so on and so on. Well, Xbox came out with their showcase. Couple things. Like the PlayStation showcase, there was very little talking. There was two people talked the whole time. Came out on stage and talked. Phil Spencer at the end, and I can't remember her name. I believe she's like head of something. Someone who's very important. They both speak fine to camera. That's all good, and what they say is reasonable, valuable. That kind of thing. For the most part, they just go game, and I love that. They show the games long enough for you to get a real sense of taste. They had a number of reveals, both first party and third party. They revealed a lot of first party stuff. They showed us games that have gone quiet for a long time that we knew were being worked on, but we hadn't heard anything from. And then we had in the Starfield Direct, I think, what is now my new high mark for showing, for selling a game shortly before its arrival, when it's a big complex game, breaking down a lot of information for us in very good ways. So I am split. It's definitely at least an A. It might be an S. Because of the quality and variety of games shown, I'm going to tilt it up to an S. The difference was, like, PlayStation showed us a lot of games, a lot of really good looking games, but, a lot of multiplayer shooters, a lot of, stuff. Xbox showed us a wide array of games. There's something there for everyone. And I think they did a really good job at that. All right. So there's my rankings. S rank is Devolver and Xbox. A is PlayStation and Future Game Show. Those are all above standard. They stand out, are very special. B is they've succeeded at what they're doing. Maybe there's some things that can be done to make them a little better. Summer Game Fest, Day of the Devs, Future of Play, Tribeca Games Spotlight. C is they almost had it. There's just some things that are detracting from the experience. That's Capcom Games Fest, or Capcom Showcase, I'm sorry. Guerrilla Collective and the Wholesome Direct. We put nothing at D because that would have been things that had more failures. And then we go straight to F, where I consider them to have detracted so much from the games that they were showing off that the show should be considered a failure, in my humble opinion. Which, who am I? I'm just some dude. That's what I got for you. I'm planning on making videos about a bunch of the games that were shown across all of these. Let's see, I watched 13 shows. That's a lot of games. 374, I believe, I made entries for on a website. I built a website so you can see all of the games that I saw. I'll put a link in the description below. And so you can see all of these games organized. The trailers are compiled if they were shown in multiple, multiple things. Hopefully it'll be helpful to you. It's just a fun project for me. That's it for now. Like and subscribe if you want, to see more of this summer game stuff that I have planned. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.